Welcome to the Stand Canada campaign launch for this fall, Justice for Rohingya. We're going to go over a few things today with the group. So we'll first have our advocacy director, Darshini, go over the scope of this campaign and why we're focusing on Justice for Rohingya this fall. Our policy co-director, Andrew, is going to come in and give us some basic background on the Rohingya conflict and point us to some more in-depth resources that STAND has prepared and that our partners have also contributed to. We are then going to hand it back over to Darshini to go over the campaign, its basic components and goals and the strategies that we're going to use to approach the issue. Bannon, the chapter's engagement co-director, I am the other co-director for that. We'll go over how you can get involved in the campaign, and then we'll end with a Q&A of feedback and anything that you would like to discuss. If you are on the call today, you're welcome to use the chat at any time to ask questions that can be deferred to the Q&A period or dealt with in the moment, depending on the circumstance. If you are watching online later, you are welcome to email any questions that you have to standwithus@standcanada.org. So we will get started, and I should probably just mute everybody quickly, except for Andrew and Darshini, and we will get going.
Perfect. Thanks, Eddie.
Great.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for making time to join us in our launch. We're really excited about this. So just to go over STAND's mandate broadly, we as a group are working towards preventing and ending genocide. And in line with that, we adopted Myanmar as a focused region last year in September in response to the escalation of the crisis against the Rohingya. So we have been monitoring the region, Myanmar, for a while, but just in terms of formalizing our campaign, in terms of showing our support to the Rohingya, we will be doing that starting fall this year. So just in terms of what we've done towards just in preparation for the full campaign, we've had discussion panels that we hosted at University of British Columbia as well as University of Toronto earlier this year. So the discussion in University of British Columbia was basically around the history of the Rohingya, their connection to the Rakhine state, which is in contention at the moment as to whether the Rohingya, as a lot of you are aware of, the ethnic cleansing that's been unfolding in that region. So that was basically discussion in at the University of British Columbia, which was in collaboration with the Bangladeshi Student Association. And along those lines, we also had a discussion panel at the University of Toronto, where we actually screened 2 documentaries that were produced by Al Jazeera. There were 360 documentaries, so it's pretty interesting. And the amount of interest from the audience was actually overwhelming, just because there's so much of information that's not been shared about the crisis, which has been happening for a while, but it's just in the past year or so that we have been actually learning about it through the media, which then brings us to our campaign goals, which will focus. The first step was to focus on educating the public on the crisis and who the Rohingya are as a group, as a community, and how we can help them just in terms of advocating for safe living spaces in the interim, as well as their safe repatriation back to Rohingya, or they've been relocated to other countries, which we'll be looking to speak to with our parliamentarians as well in Ottawa and the constituent offices. So that broadly, that's our goal at Stand, is just to ensure that the Rohingya are being repatriated safely in the long run. And the other focus, well, I wouldn't call it focus, our priority would be to address the status of Rohingya, but we're also looking to at the sexual violence that's been perpetrated against the women, as well as lobbying for sanctions under the Justice for Corrupt of Foreign Officials Act. So, so in terms of educating the public for the sexual violence that's been committed against the women, a lot of you might be, well, aware of how a lot of women in the refugee camps are looking to give up their children for adoption, just because they don't know who the father is. So that's quite a it's something that we should, as an organization, we'll be looking into as well, just in terms of support that we can provide, and as well as along the lines with some of the recommendations put forth by Bob Ray, who's part of the Special Envoy to Myanmar, commissioned by the Government of Canada. So most of our recommendations are in line with Bob Ray's report, which I'm not sure if you have had a chance to read it, but you'll be happy to circulate it later after the workshop. But our focus would primarily be in terms of repatriation. So yeah, so that's broadly our mandate and our campaign goals. I guess, Andrew, you'd like to
go
next?
Sure. So I'm just going to provide a very kind of brief overview of the conflict in the region, and then kind of go into what resources we have available for you all throughout the course of the campaign. This is I mean, I put a caveat here that this is an extremely summarized version of events, but we do have, our documentation does have quite a bit more detailed for you to peruse and go over, so that you can familiarize yourself with the issues and the background to the conflicts and the context of the conflicts and the crises at your leisure. So the Rakhine State, we see here, it's the home to these two primary ethnic groups, in particular our Rohingya Muslims. The Rohingya Muslims represent the world's largest stateless population currently. And the two key kind of like focus crises that have sparked our interest, as Darshini mentioned, have been the more recent attacks against this population. We say stateless because since 1982, the passing of a Citizenship Act actually stripped them of citizenship and the rights pursuant to that within the state. There have been a number of attacks and riots against this population over the course of the last decade or so, specifically attacks in 2012, 2013, and 14. But in particular, in the fall of 2016, there was a series of attacks that led to the execution of many Muslims, attacks against their villages, in which those villages were actually razed to the ground. And there were accusations against the government, the military, of sexual violence against women and specific targeting of civilians. And then, of course, as well as many of you well know, this has led to the flight of a lot of about 700,000 Rohingya to neighboring Bangladesh to escape this violence, where they, of course, are sitting in camps and are subject to terrible conditions, but are unable to return home. In August 2017, the Myanmar military began a systematic campaign of mass killing and sexual violence that increased and enhanced the refugee crisis. The UN Commissioner for Human Rights has commented themselves that acts of genocide may have taken place. But as you're well aware, the world leadership right now has not generally reacted along the similar lines. They have not used that language, which is one of our, as Darshini says, is one of our campaign goals to push for that to be the active language used in relation to this crisis. We rely on a number of documentation to kind of inform our policy recommendations about the Rohingya crisis. Darshini mentioned the Bob Ray report, which is, quite substantial and is available on our website. We also have 2 or 3 main pieces that we'll make available to everybody. There's the Myanmar fact sheet, which is essentially a summary of a high-level summary of all of the key points related to this. It's a quick kind of go-to document that'll serve you well when trying to disseminate information quickly and try to focus on the key points. And we also have our longer form papers, which is our analysis and policy recommendations, also available through our website, which has much more detailed background on the historical conflicts, ethnic conflicts, religious conflicts, government action, and world reaction, as well as the source material and citations that we use to inform our work and inform our advocacy goals. So those 2 resources are available to you. If you have trouble finding them, just reach out to either Fatima Atlef and myself. We are the co-policy directors, and we can help you identify those resources and make them available to you if you have trouble accessing them. Do you think, Adi, it'd be useful? I can quickly summarize. Actually, I will. It'll just be easier.
Okay.
Give a quick summary here of Canada's policy recommendations. This is coming out of our recommendations long form paper, but these are the main kind of broader policy goals. So number 1, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should speak boldly and publicly to condemn the violence committed against the Rohingya and pledge support in responses. Number 2, we should support a global arms embargo to ensure the Myanmar military no longer has access to weapons that facilitate mass atrocities against the Rohingya or other ethnic minorities. Number 3, continue to sanction individuals who are responsible for military violence against ethnic minorities. And here we're speaking specifically about generals and members of the military elite who themselves have had a direct role in these crimes against humanity. Number 4, implement the recommendations by Special Envoy Bob Ray. Number 5, the Government of Canada should remove Aung San Suu Kyi's honorary Canadian citizenship as a show of solidarity. Number 6, the Canadian government should work with other international voices, my apologies, to urge the government of Myanmar to grant the Rohingya Muslims citizenship rights. Number 7, Canada, as a dialogue partner with the Asian Association of Southeast Asian Nations and its security arm, should work with these members to initiate measures that will ensure restoration of security and promotion of preventative diplomacy in the region. And finally, in addition to the $4.3 million grant given to UNDP between 2014 and 2015, Canada should continue to contribute to developing data collection and analysis tools so that more accurate data becomes available on a timely basis, because one of the biggest challenges in any humanitarian crisis, but one of the biggest challenges we face in this one is actually having observers on the ground and having access to being able to generate the reports and data that will inform an accurate response. So that was the conflict in a few minutes. As I said, it's a very, very brief high-level overview. Please do take some time and read over, at the very least, the fact sheet. It'll give you some good background and help you be informed as we move forward throughout the campaign.
Yes, great. Thanks, Andrew. We will also be, as we're about to go into one of the major objectives of this phase of the campaign is education, and we're, as a group, committing to providing as much opportunity as possible for people to discuss these issues in depth and not just kind of like learn the facts, but engage in them and try to understand like the complexities of what's happening. So we will have a few opportunities for that. So that's coming up. So we'll pass this back over to Darshini. As she mentioned, the kind of key issues for the campaign, and there's a section on each of these in the handbook for more information, is the 2017-2018 escalation of the humanitarian crisis, the consequences of being a stateless person in the world, of not having citizenship documents that are necessary for travel across borders, and so on and so forth. Specifically the issue of violence against women, which has been talked about, and the kind of issue of foreign nationals and interest in Myanmar's resources. Darshini already went over the campaign goals with everybody. We just want to add that while we do have advocacy goals, and our advocacy team in Ottawa will be working to lobby the Canadian government on these on the campaign objectives, and based on our policy recommendations that have been prepared by the policy team. The first phase of this campaign will focus on education, on educating the public, and on educating our elected representatives and the non-elected ones, senators. Darshini, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think we're good for now.
Okay, great. Turn it over to Bannon for the raising awareness section. Here's how you can get involved.
Yes, hello everyone. So we're obviously trying to raise lots of awareness for the Rohingya crisis, and we will be doing this through different events that are educational, but that also generate dialogue about the refugee experience, because we want to try to elevate the voices of those who have been through this. So we have a lot of exciting events lined up. Some of you may know it if you're involved with chapters already, but let's just go ahead and go through it. So very soon we're gonna be co-hosting a panel discussion at York University. So this one is obviously going to be held in Toronto, and we are trying to just educate people about the Rohingya crisis and the issues of statelessness, which is one of our main focuses. We're also going to be hosting a film screening at Carleton University, hopefully, about the Tula Toli massacre that occurred last year. And this is directed by Shafir Rahman. And we're going to be inviting key political contacts. And there's also going to be a Q&A session with the director after the event. And also, nearing the new year, we're going to be hosting a Great Canadian Rohingya debate. This will be focusing on and featuring photographer Colin Boyd Schaefer. And he is a photographer, so he has created a photo series called the Canadian Rohingya. And we are going to be holding an exhibition, and that will be followed by a debate and sharing of personal stories, hopefully, by refugees and other people who have experienced statelessness and also faced with the crisis. We're also going to be hosting something for International Human Rights Day, which is on December 10th. Obviously, you're free to share any ideas if you have anything, but our hope is to do something collectively with the different chapters and get the momentum going. Just to focus on that, you're obviously free to suggest any ideas for events at any time. You don't really need our permission for it, but of course, Adi and I are here to help and assist with anything that you need. But yeah, you're always free to come up with ideas yourself if you have anything interesting, or if you know anyone who would be interested in joining the panel or anything. Feel free to suggest that to us. So also the policy team will be hosting virtual seminars for policy debriefs throughout the campaign. So you can be updated as we go along on different policy research, and that will be a really good thing to attend as well, just to know what's going on and to know how to raise awareness and what we should be focusing on. So that's really great. And we also have blogs and op-eds that you can get involved in. So we do have a communications team that puts out blogs regularly, hopefully. So you can also get involved in that if you do want to write a blog post here and there. Also, does anyone have any ideas right now for events that you could think of? Yeah, I know it's putting people on the spot, but you don't have to. But yeah, so we do encourage people to come up with ideas. Sorry? Okay, sorry, I thought I heard someone say something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Bannon. So there are a whole bunch of different ways that people can get involved with the campaign. We will be providing more information about the social media aspect of the campaign going forward, but we do want to emphasize in the meantime that the campaign hashtag is Justice for Rohingya. There are a few other hashtags that you can use to kind of participate in the bigger discussion. But once we have our returning policy director, Tori Fleming, back on September 1st, and our incoming new policy or communications co-director, who will also be starting, and they're going to be launching the campaign a little bit later than the rest of the team here. So just to finish up, please make sure that you do review the campaign handbook. There's a ton of really good information, including basically everything we've talked about here today. And we will be releasing new educational and advocacy materials, letter writing templates. We do want to emphasize that we do have action alerts. So the advocacy team at specific times in the campaign, and also in response to emergency situations and what happens in the region, we'll be sending out action alerts to write your member of parliament or various targeted officials like the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So please make sure that you are subscribed for the advocacy action alerts. And we do also have a campaign newsletter. So when STAND is engaging in a specific timeline of a campaign, we do release a regular newsletter that gives you an update of all the things that are coming up and all the updates on what just happened. So you can subscribe online, and that link is also in the campaign handbook, which will be shared with all of the national volunteers and all of the chapters. And if you need to get a copy or get involved, you will be able to do so through our website. You can also email us at standwithus@standcanada.org. Great.